truth cannot be put in words. All the words, they can just point in the right direction. They can give a little vague notion how to look, how to experience, how to be open. Spiritual teaching is a tricky thing. We are using words, talking about things that cannot really be talked about. We can talk about problems on the way. We can talk about many things that can be talked about, that can be understood, that can be resolved. But the essence, what we are pointing at, cannot be put in words. Now there are teachers, they just have their way, and they teach that to everyone. And those who like it, they come to them, and it's the right thing for them. Sometimes people hanging out, and it's maybe not the right thing for them, and after some time they find out they have to move on. But then there are teachers like great beings like Ramana Maharshi. They are capable of teaching according to the need of the person. And so we can find that he is telling different things to different people. Now there are so many devotees of Ramana Maharshi. He brought such an intensity in this world that he keeps on inspiring people after such a long time that he has left his body. And people like to be knowledgeable and quote from Ramana Maharshi. And one favorite quote is very popular, that you are already dead, nothing needs to be done about it. At the same time, people don't see that he kept on telling people to practice something. You are not the mind, but he's kept on telling people to make their mind strong. And what does it mean to make the mind strong? So sometimes people told me, no, you have to make the mind weak to let go of it. No. To make the mind strong doesn't mean that we are thinking all the time. To make the mind strong means that we learn to be quiet. If we can, without thinking at all. If we can't, then learn to pick up one idea and focus on that without getting distracted in all directions all the time. That's what he meant with a strong mind. It means we stop thinking. And he kept on telling to people to practice something. Often he asked people to do self-inquiry. But he asked people also to be aware of the breath and very rarely to control the breath. And he gave mantras. He gave mantras to people for the same purpose. The teaching is not explaining reality. It's simply pointing at something. The legend about Buddha says that when he had his great enlightenment under that banyan tree, after that he was for a long time sitting there wondering how can he convey it to the people. And he doesn't try to define reality. After that he came out with the path, with the eightfold path, the 8 different aspects that we can handle in a proper way in order to become more detached, in order to become more conscious, in order to become more quiet. Ramana, if you read his talks, you can see there is a general line that comes. Every teacher has his favorite way that comes true all the time, again and again. But still, you see that he was teaching people different. And once one Goenka Vipassana man told me that Vipassana and inquiry is the highest. And I said, well, but Ramana also asked people to be with the breath and sometimes to control the breath. But if somebody couldn't do self-inquiry, then he advised him to do that. And he said, yes, because they couldn't do, thinking that inquiry is the highest, but he did also the opposite. He gave mantra, and people would come back and say, I cannot do that. I cannot just repeat one word or one line over and over. It somehow doesn't fit. I can't do it. And he said, okay, do self-inquiry. Doesn't mean that when he did that to somebody telling that the first instruction was the highest, and then, okay, if you are not capable for the highest, do something else. Nisargadatta Maharaj is being quoted by different people. And especially from his last period, there are different people who have written books and about his talks. They taped talks, and after that they put them into books, but they picked out what was favorable for them. And it's amazing, you wouldn't think they are talking about the same teacher. If you read from one person what they have picked out from his teaching, and from another person what they have picked out from his teaching. When I first came to India, I was in Bombay in the Chinmaya mission, and I had the good luck that Nisargadatta was still there. So I went to a few of his satsangs. And in that same satsang, to somebody, he said, yes, you cannot do anything. You cannot do anything to get to that. And to me, he said, I didn't even ask. He just suddenly looked at me and said, if you want to get that, you must want it. You must want it. That's what I needed to hear. Actually, Amma after that harped on that same line all the time. Those great beings, they adjust their teaching to what they feel the person who is listening needs to hear. And then after that, we can quote and say, this teacher said like this, or this teacher said like that. But it's always good to remember when they were talking to somebody and said that which they felt is the best at that moment. For truth cannot be put in words. All the words, they can just point in the right direction. They can give a little vague notion how to look, how to experience, how to be open. And how we are opening up is very different from one to another. Whether we are doing mantra, whether we are praying to God, whether we are worshipping in other ways God, whether we are doing self-inquiry, whether we are doing the traditional approach of Advaita, I'm not this, I'm not that, but I am Brahman. Or whether we are doing it more in a yogic way, being aware of the body, being aware of the energy, learning to harmonize that whole energy field, fill it up with that life force and tune into the cosmic energy and become expansive in this way and quiet. Whatever we are doing, of course, the quote is right. You are already dead. Nothing needs to be done about that. But all our efforts are to become aware how much we are preventing ourselves from being in the natural state, and so we practice. Not really to attain that reality. That reality is there. Without that reality, we couldn't practice. We couldn't think, we couldn't smell, we couldn't taste, we couldn't have an experience. And a devotee from Amma who had been studying the traditional Vedanta, and then he was talking with Amma, and she was talking about God, and he a little bit in that arrogant intellectual way said, "Oh God, God, where is that God?" And without a moment's hesitation, the answer came from Amma, there where your question is coming from. That which makes the experience possible. That is the goal. That is what we want to become aware of. It's here, it's now, and all the practices should lead us back here. That's the purpose of those practices. And the teachers, they are teaching them knowing that they are not going to bring something about which is already there, but help to remove the obstacles. The obstacles from being in our natural state. So let's practice playfully, joyously, steadily, day after day. Have some time when we can withdraw and practice as good as we can when we are active, when we are amongst people. And right now, there is an energy there that makes it a little bit more difficult. I have heard a number of practitioners say that usually they could connect easier, and it's difficult these days. And there is an energy that is pushing people in such a way that it makes it a bit more difficult to consciously connect and relax. That's not a reason for not practicing, but a reason for that much more. Be regular about practice and remind ourselves to be alert here and now, alert in our conscious experience, and practice in that way, even with more sincerity. When it's being made difficult, That doesn't mean we should stop, but it means, okay, there is a hurdle and we can overcome it. For the essence is still the same. The essence is here and now, and somehow or other, we learn to bring the attention back home to that simple, unfathomable essence. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om, my friends.